In the depths of time, there was a magnificent planet orbiting the sun, Nibiru, the home of the gods, the battlefield of kings, and the starting point of great catastrophes. As its atmosphere weakened, the fate of the planet became uncertain. While kings sought solutions, throne struggles erupted. Prince Alalu rebelled in this chaos, but after losing the throne, he was forced to flee. He set course for a distant planet, one mentioned in ancient texts, a world surrounded by blue waters, Earth. So how would this journey mark the beginning for gods and humans? Come, let's explore together.
A great catastrophe had befallen the lands of Sumer. It was a destruction unlike anything humanity had ever seen or even imagined. A terrible wind, advancing from west to east, was named the Wind of Evil. This wind poisoned the rivers, dried up the fields, and filled the cities with lifeless bodies. The people were forced to abandon their homes, fields, and livestock, fleeing in desperation. Once full of life, these lands were now buried in silence. The greatest devastation struck the magnificent cities of Sumer. Towering temples were abandoned, kings and nobles fled, leaving behind only death and ruins. Even the gods of the cities were powerless against this catastrophe. First, the people fled, and then even the gods had to abandon their sacred temples. It became clear that this disaster was not a natural fate, but had been deliberately unleashed by the gods. With the permission of Enlil and Ninharsag, the gods Ninurta and Nergal had released a terrifying weapon. A great flash of light came first, followed by the deadly wind. Even the gods themselves could not foresee the full extent of the destruction caused by this weapon. As they fled the cities, they watched in horror the devastation they had left behind. One by one, the sacred cities of Ur, Nippur, and Eridu fell. Nannar pleaded with his father, Enlil, "Save us and my people." But Enlil said he could not stop the destruction. Nothing could be undone now. The people were left to their fate. Behind this devastation lay a decision, an ambition, and a thirst for vengeance. This was no great flood, nor was it an inevitable disaster of nature. It was the result of a decision made by the gods. In their own struggles and conflicts, the gods had cast aside humanity, whom they had once created together. And so, the glorious days of Sumer came to an end. Once the center of prosperity and culture, these lands became a barren wasteland, where silence reigned and nothing could be heard but the howling of the wind. The unrest among the gods gradually escalated into a great conflict. Ninurta, the son of Enlil and Nergal, harbored deep resentment toward Marduk. Marduk had interpreted celestial signs in his own favor, seeking to proclaim his dominion, which infuriated the other gods. Enlil's sons refused to accept Marduk's rule over the earth and decided to wage war against him. This struggle was not only a battle among the gods, but also a great reckoning that would determine the fate of humanity. With Marduk's rise, the other gods began seeking ways to stop him. Ninurta was enraged that Marduk had declared Babylon as the navel of the earth and vowed to oppose him with weapons. Marduk's brother, Nergal, also proposed uniting against him and launching a war. As the celestial signs were debated, some gods accepted Marduk's rule as inevitable, while others continued to resist. Amid this turmoil, Enlil's younger son, Ishkur, demanded that Marduk be punished. Nannar's son, Utu, accused Marduk's son, Nabu, of attempting to seize the celestial chariots. The greatest fury, however, came from Inanna. She had held Marduk responsible for the death of her beloved Dumuzi and had long awaited his punishment. In the Council of the Gods, heated discussions took place on how to prevent Marduk's ascension. Ultimately, Nergal and Ninurta made a monumental decision. The weapons of terror had to be used. These weapons had been hidden away since ancient times, and though their destructive power was known, they had not been used for a very long time. This decision sparked a major ethical debate. Enki opposed the use of such a terrible weapon against his own kin. A brother swore never to use the weapons of terror against another brother, he cried out. But he was met with silence. In the end, Enlil declared that Marduk must be punished and granted permission for the weapons to be used. Ninurta and Nergal, taking on the titles of the Scorcher and the Destroyer, set out to seize the weapons of terror. And so the conflict among the gods reached a point of no return. The brothers were willing to use deadly weapons against one another in the name of vengeance. Yet no one could fully predict how this decision would not only affect Marduk, but also impact all of humanity and disrupt the balance of the world. In very ancient times, before the gods came to Earth, there was a great planet that was their home, Nibiru. This planet orbited the sun in a vast trajectory, sometimes drifting far away, and at other times drawing close to the sun, warming up. It had a long and elliptical orbit, completing one full revolution over an extended period called a shar. Nibiru's atmosphere was very thick and was constantly replenished by volcanic eruptions. This atmosphere protected the planet during its cold phases and acted as a shield against the sun's scorching rays during its warm phases. Thanks to this protective layer, life developed on Nibiru, and over time, beings known as the gods emerged. Over the ages, different communities formed on Nibiru. Some people cultivated the land and engaged in agriculture, while others raised livestock. However, just like humans, they were not free from conflicts. As tribes grew, competition arose among them. The first great war broke out between the northern and southern nations. Initially, there were small-scale conflicts, but over time, these escalated into a full-scale war. Weapons advanced, missiles were invented, and great destruction followed. After a long and devastating war, a truce was finally established. With the restoration of peace, a royal system was introduced on Nibiru. To unite the North and South, a law was enacted. If the new king came from the North, his queen had to be from the South, and vice versa. This ensured balance between the two nations and prevented further wars. With this new system, the first great era of kings began on Nibiru. The first king was a warrior from the North who took the name An. The name An meant heavenly one. The kings that followed further solidified Nibiru's governance. However, over time, a major problem began to emerge. The atmosphere was thinning. This growing issue threatened the future of Nibiru. As the protective layer weakened, the planet's hot and cold phases became more extreme. The wise scholars of Nibiru studied the problem and discovered that the volcanoes were no longer erupting as frequently as before. The gases that had once sustained the atmosphere were diminishing, making Nibiru increasingly uninhabitable. To prevent this looming catastrophe, various solutions were proposed. Some suggested that a rare metal called gold could repair the atmosphere. If gold were ground into fine dust and dispersed into the sky, it could restore the damaged atmospheric layer and protect Nibiru once again. However, there was very little gold on Nibiru. Therefore, the only option was to search for gold on other planets. This quest for gold would ultimately lead the gods to Earth. The downfall of Nibiru was the first step that pushed them toward their journey to Earth and set into motion the fate of humanity. On Nibiru, kings ruled according to established succession laws. However, over time, these laws led to great turmoil, fueling fierce power struggles for the throne. In the early days, kingship was passed from father to son in a traditional system. However, in certain cases, instead of the firstborn son, the son born from the king's half-sister would ascend to the throne. This gave rise to a new rule known as the Law of the Seed. According to the Law of the Seed, a king's throne could only be inherited by a son born from his full sister. This was meant to preserve the divine bloodline in its purest form. However, this rule also ignited intense rivalries for the throne. Many princes within the royal family began to claim that they were the true heirs. This led to intrigues, conspiracies, and even rebellions within the palace. During this period, some kings had to make difficult decisions. Some strictly enforced the Law of the Seed, while others sought a more flexible approach. However, in both cases, unrest persisted among the princes and their advisors. As kings changed, Nibiru's atmospheric crisis deepened. While the battles for the throne continued, efforts were also being made to save the planet. Some leaders proposed searching for gold to restore the atmosphere, while others suggested using ancient weapons of terror to trigger volcanic eruptions and strengthen the planet's protective layer. However, no consensus could be reached on the best solution. Eventually, the power struggles for the throne led to one of the greatest crises, Elalu's rebellion. Elalu overthrew King Lama and seized power by force. However, his reign did not last long, as Prince Anu challenged him. Their confrontation ended with Elalu losing the throne and being exiled. This exile became the turning point that would eventually lead the gods to descend upon Earth. The power struggles among Nibiru's kings not only shaped the fate of their own planet, but also set in motion the events that would lead the gods to Earth. These conflicts were the first link in a chain of events that would ultimately result in the gods establishing their dominion over Earth. Nibiru was a great and magnificent planet, drifting endlessly through the heavens. For long ages it was ruled by powerful kings, and its people lived in abundance. However, over time, a great catastrophe loomed. The planet's atmosphere was weakening. This atmosphere was a vital shield, protecting Nibiru from the cold of space and the scorching rays of the sun. But it was no longer as strong as it once was. The rains ceased, the rivers dried up, and the land became barren. Crops no longer grew in the fields, and the people faced famine and drought. King Lama summoned the wise men to his palace and commanded them to find a solution. The great astronomers and scholars worked day and night, ultimately proposing two major solutions. The first proposal suggested that gold was needed to restore the atmosphere. The scholars had discovered that gold's ability to reflect light and retain heat could help mend the weakening atmosphere if ground into fine dust and dispersed into the sky. If this could be achieved, the protective shield around Nibiru would regain its strength, and the planet would once again become habitable. However, there was a major problem. Nibiru did not have enough gold. The planet's mineral deposits were examined, but no significant gold reserves were found. The scholars then proposed searching for gold in the depths of space. There might be gold in the hammered bracelet, the asteroid belt, or on other planets. If celestial ships could be built and gold could be retrieved, perhaps Nibiru could be saved. Yet some did not find this idea strong enough. Even if gold was found, collecting it and dispersing it into the sky could take many years. No one knew whether Nibiru had that much time left. Because of this, a more radical proposal emerged. The second proposal came from warrior gods and scholars who suggested using the ancient weapons of terror to reactivate the volcanoes. Nibiru's atmosphere had once been strong because its volcanoes constantly spewed smoke. However, over time, these eruptions had decreased, weakening the atmosphere. If the volcanoes could be reawakened, they could release gases into the air and strengthen the protective layer once more. But this plan carried a terrifying risk. Artificially triggering volcanic eruptions could destabilize Nibiru and lead to unexpected disasters. While the scholars debated the dangers, the warrior gods were determined. If we do not act, we will all perish, they declared. King Lama listened to both proposals, but he could not decide. Days, months, and even years passed. Lama hesitated and delayed action, taking no definitive steps, and that was when the people lost their patience. Whispers grew within the palace. The princes became restless. Finally, a prince named Alalu raised the banner of rebellion. He led an uprising against the king and overthrew him. But even Alalu could not solve the atmospheric crisis. Celestial ships were sent to the hammered bracelet to search for gold, but they were all destroyed. The weapons of terror were used to awaken the volcanoes, but they failed to produce the desired results. Meanwhile, Prince Anu, Alalu's greatest rival, challenged him. After a great duel, Anu emerged victorious, dethroning Alalu. However, Alalu refused to accept defeat. He secretly boarded a celestial ship and fled toward an unknown destination. And thus, Alalu's journey would not only shape his own fate, but also mark the beginning of the gods' adventure on Earth and the birth of humanity. The struggle for the throne in Nibiru was not merely about seizing power. It was a battle that would determine the fate of the planet itself. King Lama remained inactive despite the famine and atmospheric crisis that plagued his people. As unrest grew within the palace, whispers of rebellion spread among the princes and advisors. The foremost leader of this unrest was Prince Alalu. Seeing the king's weakness and the people's desperation as an opportunity, Alalu gathered a group of supporters within the palace and launched a rebellion. His forces overpowered the royal guards and advanced toward the king's chambers. King Lama fled to the highest tower of the palace, but Alalu cornered him there. A deadly struggle ensued between the two, and Alalu threw Lama from the tower, killing him. Thus, Alalu seized the throne by force and proclaimed himself the new king of Nibiru. However, his rule was not without controversy. The royal council was deeply unsettled. Did Alalu's lineage truly give him the right to rule? Some princes and advisors argued that he had no legitimate claim to the throne and had usurped it unlawfully. At this time, Prince Anu stepped forward to challenge Alalu's claim. Anu, a descendant of Nibiru's ancient kings, declared that he was the true heir to the throne. The royal council sought a compromise between the two rivals. According to their proposal, Anu would be Alalu's successor and would ascend to the throne in the future. Additionally, a marriage alliance was arranged. Alalu's daughter would marry Anu's son, ensuring the unification of their dynasties. However, over time, the people grew dissatisfied with Alalu's rule. The atmospheric crisis remained unresolved, and the search for gold had yielded no results. Many believed that Alalu had failed just as Lama had before him. This weakening support gave Anu the perfect opportunity. At last, Prince Anu openly challenged Alalu. The two engaged in a brutal hand-to-hand combat for the throne. The stone walls of the palace trembled as they fought, and the spectators watched in breathless anticipation. In the end, Anu emerged victorious. Alalu fell to the ground, defeated, and was forced to surrender. But Alalu refused to accept a fate dictated by others. That very night, he secretly boarded a celestial ship and fled from Nibiru. He set course for an unknown destination. Yet he remembered the name of an ancient, distant planet mentioned in old records. A planet with a snowy white glow, surrounded by vast blue waters. Earth. And so, Alalu's journey began. A journey that would not only change his destiny, but would also mark the beginning of the gods' presence on Earth and the birth of humankind.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest content. We've got plenty more exciting videos coming your way, so stay tuned and we'll see you in the next one.